Phil Knight was born in Portland, Oregon in 1938. He was quiet, he was shy, but inside he had a fire. He loved to run. He ran every day. He ran in the rain. He ran in the sun. Running made him feel alive. He wanted to become a great athlete. He trained hard. He pushed his body. He won races in high school. He kept running in college. He dreamed of going to the Olympics. He wanted to make his country proud. But one day, reality hit. He was good, but not good enough. He had reached his limit. He was fast, but not the fastest. The Olympic dream died quietly. That day hurt. His heart was broken. But Phil didn't quit life. He asked himself, if I can't run for glory, what else can I do? He thought deeply. He still loved running. He still loved sports. He wanted to stay close to the world of athletes. In business school, he had written a paper. That paper changed everything. It was about Japanese shoes. In the 1960s, Japan made cheap but high-quality products. Japanese cameras were already beating American brands. Phil asked, why not shoes too? He got an idea. What if he imported Japanese running shoes and sold them in America? Big brands like Adidas and Puma ruled the market, but their shoes were expensive. Japanese shoes could be cheaper. That was his plan. He needed to try. He borrowed money from his father. Then he flew to Japan. It was 1962. He was only 24. He didn't have a company. He didn't have a team. But he had a dream, and dreams are powerful. In Japan, he visited a shoe company called Onitsuka. They made tiger shoes. Phil asked for a meeting. They agreed. In the meeting, they asked, what company do you represent? Phil didn't know what to say, so he made up a name. He said Blue Ribbon Sports. It sounded professional. It sounded real. Then he shared his research. He talked about the American market. He explained how Japanese shoes could compete. The Onitsuka team listened. They liked what they heard. They agreed to send him some samples. Phil was overjoyed. It was the first step. He returned home to Oregon. He waited and waited. Months passed. No shoes came. He needed money, so he got a job as an accountant. Almost a year later, the shoes finally arrived. 12 pairs of tigers. Phil showed them to his old track coach, Bill Bowerman. Bowerman was a genius with shoes. He used to cut them, redesign them, and test new ideas. He loved the tigers, so much that he asked to become Phil's partner. Phil agreed. Now they were a team. They placed a new order, 300 shoes for $1,000. They wrote a letter to Onitsuka asking for exclusive rights in the Western U.S. Onitsuka agreed. Blue Ribbon Sports was real now. Phil stored the shoes in the basement of his parents' house. That was his warehouse. That was his office. He tried selling to stores, but no one wanted them, so he did something brave. He took the shoes and drove to track events. He sold them from the trunk of his car. He talked to runners. He showed them the shoes. He believed in the product. People listened. People bought. In 2 months, he sold all 300 pairs. He ordered 900 more. He went to the bank. He asked for a $1,000 loan. The bank gave it to him. That was the start. But not everything was easy. Section 2. The first fight business grew. Slowly but surely. In the first year, sales reached $8,000. Phil worked all day. He answered calls, he packed boxes, he shipped shoes. He also worked as an accountant to survive. Every dollar went back into the company. Then he hired someone. A young runner named Jeff Johnson. Jeff had passion. He had energy. He lived and breathed shoes. He spoke to customers. He mailed out letters. He even opened Blue Ribbon's first store. Sales doubled. Everything looked good. But then came a problem. A wrestling coach from California called Phil. He said Onitsuka had given him the rights to sell Tiger shoes in America. Phil was shocked. Was Onitsuka playing games? Phil sent letters. No reply. He had to protect his dream. So he flew to Japan again. He walked into the Onitsuka office with confidence. He showed them sales data. He shared growth plans. He reminded them of their agreement. Mr. Onitsuka listened. He agreed to keep Phil as the Western distributor. The wrestling coach lost, Phil won. But deep inside, Phil lost trust. He began to see the danger. Back home, things were growing fast. Coach Bowerman was improving the shoes. He created a new design. It was called the Cortez. It was strong. It was light. It was perfect for American runners. Sales exploded. In 5 years, Blue Ribbon Sports made over $1 million in revenue. Phil finally quit his accounting job. He was now a full-time entrepreneur. But the problems didn't stop. Onitsuka wanted more control. They told Phil to sell 51% of Blue Ribbon to them. If not, they would cut him off. Phil was furious. He had built this business. He had taken all the risk. He said no. He knew what he had to do. He knew it was time to start his own shoe company. He gathered his team. "We're not just a distributor anymore," he said. "We're going to build our own brand." The team was scared, but they believed in him. They started planning. They needed a name. They needed a logo. The name had to be powerful. They thought of many. Falcon. Dimension 6. But nothing felt right. Then Jeff Johnson had a dream. In the dream, a name came to him. Nike. It was the name of the Greek goddess of victory. Everyone loved it. That became the name. They also needed a logo. A student named Carolyn Davidson drew a curved check mark. It was simple. It showed motion. It looked fast. Phil didn't love it, but he said, "It will grow on me." He paid her $35. That swoosh became a global symbol. Now they had everything. A name, a logo, and a dream. Nike was born. They found a new factory to make shoes. They started small, but their shoes were strong. The first real test came with athletes. They signed a young runner named Steve Prefontaine. He was bold. He was talented. He wore Nike shoes with pride. Others followed. Sales grew. Nike had arrived. But the war was just beginning. Phil was doing well with Blue Ribbon Sports. The business was growing fast. His team was excited. His customers were loyal. People were starting to recognize the brand. Everything seemed to be going right. But then came the shock. The Japanese company, Onitsuka, wanted more power. They asked Phil to sell them 51% of his company. If he refused, they would stop working with him. Phil was stunned. He had worked hard to grow their shoes in America. He had built their brand, and now they wanted to push him out. Phil felt betrayed. He had trusted them. He had built his dream on this partnership. But now that dream was falling apart. He didn't sleep that night. He walked around in silence. His mind was spinning. But in that silence, he found strength. He told himself, "This is not my end. This is my chance to start something new. Something bigger. Something of my own." Phil took a deep breath. He looked at his team and said, "We don't need them anymore. We will build our own shoes. We will build our own brand." The team was shocked, but they trusted Phil. They had seen his fire. They had seen his passion. They were ready to follow him. They needed a name, something powerful, something that meant victory, something that would stand out. Then came a surprise. Jeff Johnson, one of Phil's first employees, had a dream. In that dream, he saw a name, Nike. It was the name of the Greek goddess of victory. The team loved it. It felt strong. It felt bold. It felt right. They needed a logo, too. Phil didn't have a big budget, so he found a young design student. He asked her to draw something simple, something fast. She drew a curve that looked like a check mark. She called it the swoosh. It cost $35. That small logo would one day become world famous. Now they had a name, a logo, and a dream. But they still didn't have shoes. So they worked with a factory, they sent in designs, they tested samples, they made changes, they never gave up. They believed this would work. In 1971, Nike was born. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. It was their own. It was built on courage, risk, and belief. Phil knew the road ahead would be hard, but he also knew one thing for sure. He was finally building his dream, not someone else's. Nike had started, but no one knew the name. No one cared, yet. Phil and his team had to fight again. They had to earn every sale, every customer, every smile. They packed shoes by hand. They delivered them by car. They stood at races, at gyms, at track fields, talking to coaches, giving samples, listening to feedback. They were not just selling shoes, they were building a brand. Phil had one belief. If you could win the hearts of athletes, you could win the world. Then came something magical. His old coach, Bill Bowerman, had an idea. One morning, he looked at his wife's waffle iron, and he thought, what if shoe soles could have this pattern? It was strange. It was wild, but it worked. The waffle sole gave better grip. It was light. It was fast. Runners loved it. Coaches noticed it. Sales took off. Suddenly, Nike was not just another brand. It was a problem solver. Phil kept pushing. Then came the moment that changed everything. In 1984, he heard about a young basketball player, a rookie. His name was Michael Jordan. Most companies didn't see the value, but Phil saw something else. He saw greatness. He made a big bet. Nike offered Jordan his own shoe line. At the time, it was risky. No one had done that before, but when the first Air Jordans dropped, the world exploded. Kids wanted them. Teenagers lined up for them. Stores sold out in hours. Nike had done it. They weren't just selling shoes anymore. They were selling dreams, confidence, power. Nike became more than a brand. It became a movement. But Phil never relaxed. Every win brought new challenges. There were lawsuits, there were money problems, there were critics. But Phil stayed calm. He had learned one lesson. Winners are not made in comfort, they are made in chaos. He remembered those early days, selling shoes from his car, writing orders on paper, packing boxes by hand. He had come so far, but he never forgot the pain, the struggle, the fight, because that pain had shaped him. Nike was now a global giant, but it still carried the heart of a fighter, the soul of a dreamer, and Phil Knight was the man who refused to quit, the man who turned failure into